Hello,
tape
people.
in front of the
Welcome
live
to
studio audience.
episode 60 of the Rock Show. Holy shit. So between me and you, we done like a lot of episodes. Me and John up to like 84.
Yeah, you guys were before us.
Yeah, so we're doing, so this is actually episode 60, and we have a special show for you guys today. We're actually going to be on for a little, because we're doing two shows today.
Right,
So
we're doing
this is
two
the
rock
first one,
shows
yeah.
back to back in the bunker.
Yeah.
Because we had nowhere else to go.
The bars are
The
closed.
bars are closed. What are we going to do? What is everybody going to do? This is like Armageddon, man. It's like end of days. I was coming in on a train and coming in from Queens on the train, and all I saw was homeless and crazies. It was like Escape from New York or something, man.
No, it's more like it's like the Warriors.
Yeah,
You gotta go through all the bubs.
Right. Gonna bang through all those gangs.
Oh my god! Once you see the guy with baseball bats, it's over.
But we're gonna take you back to an earlier, more pleasant, simpler, innocent time, the early 1960s. Today's show is on the Temptations. One of the greatest bands, as far as I'm concerned, ever. They had a period of time where they did some music called psychedelic soul.
Oh yeah,
and we're going to emphasize that a little bit. We're going to talk about a little bit of the history, and then get into some of the psychedelic soul albums specifically. So I hope you all enjoy it. If you're sitting home doing nothing, working from home because you're quarantined with the virus, or God forbid, I hope you're not. Just hang out. We're going to be with you for a little while today.
Yeah. So if you need entertainment, you will be entertained with
Getting
the story.
lumped up entertainment. Glue.
Yeah, glue. The glue.
All right. Now, the Temptations, there was a classic five lineup of them, which consisted of David Ruffin, Melvin Franklin, Paul Williams, Otis Williams, they're not related, and Eddie Kendricks. But the origin of the band really started with the combination of two different bands with some of those members.
They were rival bands. Actually,
they were rival, friendly rivals. They didn't hate each other, but it was what happened was they came from two different parts of the country. They all ended up in Detroit, and they formed it. Okay, now Eddie Kendricks and Paul Williams were from Birmingham, Alabama, and they sang together in their same church. They also were in some doo-wop bands together, one in particular called the Cavaliers in the mid-'50s. Now, in '57, they were doing pretty well with the band, but they decided to take it and move to Detroit, where they would actually change the name to the Primes.
Yeah.
Okay. They wanted to try to make it in Detroit. It seemed that was the R&B capital of America at that point, so that's what they wanted to do. Now, they had a manager named Milton Jenkins that kind of directed the band, and he actually formed a sister group to the Primes called the Primettes, and they would eventually become the Supremes.
Yep.
Okay? But the show's not about them. Okay?
No.
So, about the Primes.
Now,
Now,
they also signed up with a very interesting character where they were Berry Gordy.
well, Berry Gordy is the guy was a genius. Okay, and
he was a motherfucker.
Well, he's a businessman.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time as the Primes, Otis Williams and Melvin Franklin were part of a vocal group called the Distance, Distands, Distance, and they recorded a single called "Come On" in 1959. And another one called All Right in 1960 for Northern Records. So they had a little bit more of a career at that point than the Primes. Both bands were aware of each other and even were kind of like friendly rivals with each other. But both bands would break up in 1960. It was interesting because they broke up, but both bands were being courted by Berry Gordy.
Yeah.
So that he was kind of like instrumental in bringing these two groups together to make one group.
Yep.
Okay, and through some kind of miracle, the stars lined up in the heavens, and Otis Williams, Melvin Franklin, Eddie Kendricks, and Paul Williams, with a new singer named Al Bryant, came together to audition for Motown under the name the Elgins.
Yep.
Okay, they didn't have the Temptations name yet, and that was in March of 1961. Turned out there was another group called the Elgins, and so they had to come up with another name. They were throwing some ideas around. There was some record company employees that had a few ideas. They were throwing ideas around, and they came up with the Temptations. Now, 2 singles were released very quickly by Miracle Records, which was like a subset of Motown and Berry Records at the time. I'm not quite sure if there was Motown technically at that point. I think it was Berry Records.
Yeah, because then it just turned wherever they live. It would turn into Hipville.
Well, Hitsville was the recording studio where all the Detroit bands recorded. Hitsville, USA. That would be the center of all that. Now, they released 2 singles right off the bat. One called "Oh Mother of Mine" and another song called "Check Yourself."
Yep.
Paul Williams actually sang lead on both of those. And Gordy, shortly after that, would close Miracle Records and then put them on the Gordy record label.
Yeah.
All right, so there was a lot of wheeling and dealing going on with those labels to come up with the right kind of thing. They came out with a single called "You're My Dream Come True." And that got to number 22 on the R&B charts in 1962. At this point, the Temptations, hadn't broken in the pop world yet. It was still early.
Yeah, let me ask you a question about that. So most of this hit, to me, a lot of the song didn't sound like R&B. It sounded more like popular music. Like if you listen to this, a lot of that stuff is more like popular music. Even that stuff that came out, but I guess because they were black, that's what the cargo them and R&B was that. That's what it was.
That's what it was. If you weren't a white act, you were a black act.
You were
R&B. You were throwing that R&B. They definitely. I mean, I would classify them as R&B, but with a pop tinge to it, especially with certain songs.
Let me tell you, "My Girl" is a pop song. That's
not
an
no,
R&B
absolutely. That would be less R&B and more pop. Even like "Ain't Too Proud to Beg," something like that's more of an R&B.
But that's another song that's in the borderline. That could be a pop song, or it could be an R&B song.
Well, once they got into those songs and they were making it, they had a formula, and they stuck with it. They kind of abandoned, I guess, more of that doo-woppy vocal group thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when they get into the psychedelic soul stuff, it's totally different.
Oh, when but to me, that's more R&B. Anything that's psychedelic stuff.
You think so? Because they aim to have a lot of. I agree, but I think that they have a lot of there's guitar playing, rock guitar playing.
But they added that to get that weird sound, which was like holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was inventive at the time. Now, the group began touring a lot after that hit of "You're My Dream Come True" on the R&B charts. They released a couple more singles, and they started working with Smokey Robinson. He was starting to write some songs.
Let me ask you, was Smokey Robinson considered Temptation?
No.
He was just Smokey Robinson.
There was Smokey Robinson and the Miracles.
Yeah.
That was totally different thing.
I wonder why he never just sang with them.
He had his own thing. Now, he was more than just a singer. He had his own musical career, but he wrote for a lot of artists.
Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote most of the songs.
He wrote, especially those early ones. He wrote quite a few.
My Girl.
Was involved with the writing and him collaborating with other people. I don't think there was any interest in him becoming a Temptation. They kind of had that down. Him being in it, he was probably too much of a personality on his own.
All right.
To be that, So by 1963, Al Bryant was becoming disillusioned with the band and frustrated really because they weren't making it as quickly as he wanted. The rigorous touring affected his day job. Al Bryant was a milkman. Well, you know what? They weren't making a lot of money, and he kept that job. I don't blame him.
He was like the Dave Chappelle kind of milkman.
Yeah, right. That's funny. He had a couple of altercations, probably drunken. There you go, lumped up. Espelon.
Jonathan, the drinks are here, baby. We might not have a bar, but there's drinking going on.
There's always something here. He had an altercation with Paul Williams in the band. He actually, at one point, he threw a beer bottle at him on stage. Okay, so there was like some crazy shit going on.
There was always like a lot of infighting with the band. They stayed together, but there was always like that.
Yeah. Now, aspiring singer David Ruffin became a fan and a follower of the band. He would go to a lot of the shows, and he was trying to make himself known as wanting to be a member of the Temptations. He would even jump up on stage sometimes and just, and they started to kind of like the guy and appreciate what he was doing. Al Bryant wasn't working out because of his attitude. And after a Christmas performance where he got into another big altercation with Paul Williams, he was fired from the band, and David Ruffin was asked to join.
How crazy is that guy? That was a groupie pretty much.
No, that's happened. That's happened. Yeah, I mean, in those days, these bands had close contact with their fans. It's not like what later on, I mean, they were playing in small clubs and they weren't huge yet.
And that the way Richie Manitoba guy was a dictator.
He was a friend and like carried equipment and all kinds of shit. Helped them with the band, and he just ended up, why don't you sing these songs with us?
Yeah,
that happens. In April of '64, in January of '64, Ruffin was brought in. And that was the Classic Five combination that I mentioned earlier. In April of '64, this is when they started to take off. You had The Way You Do the Things You Do.
That's a great song.
Right? That was their first top 20 hit. Eddie Kendricks was actually the lead of that. In the early days of the Temptations, different guys would take the lead in a song. And that was the style. But that would change when we get into the psychedelic soul. I'll explain more about that. In '64, December of that year, My Girl was released, and it was a huge hit. It was the first Ruffin lead vocal, even though he'd been in the band for a few months already. It was his first lead vocal, and it went to #1 with a bullet.
That was a great song.
Yeah. Ain't Too Proud to Beg was the next one.
Yep.
Okay, again singing with David Ruffin, and this was when they got affiliated with producer Norman Whitfield, who would go on to produce a lot of albums and singles with them. With Ain't Too Proud to Beg, he brought in like some heavier bass, heavier brass, I should say, also sound, a little bit of a harder edge, and more like a James Brown sort of like influence with things. They were going in what, at that point there was no word for it, but it was like a funkier direction. There was no word funk yet, but that's what.
I always liked the song "I Wish It Would Rain."
Really good song. Yeah. I never heard a song from the Temptations I didn't like. They got songs that are better than others, but they're always listenable. Between 1966 and '68.
Pass me that shot behind the silver cups.
Behind the silver cups.
Right there. Give me that little bottle.
Oh, I thought it was a shot glass you were looking for.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Between '66 and '68, they had several hits, including what you just said, "I Wish It Would Rain."
Yeah.
And "I Could Never Love Another After Loving You." I mean, they were known for their ballads. That would change, okay? Because by '67, David Ruffin would start kind of getting out of control. He was getting very demanding with special treatment that he wanted. He didn't want to ride with the other guys.
Yeah.
He had his own limo, which rumors say was mink-lined. Okay, he was walking around with his girlfriend Tammy Terrell, who was like a up-and-coming singer. She'd been around for a while, backups and stuff. She had her own career too.
Yeah,
she would actually die around that time too of brain cancer.
Wow!
But he was dating her, and he would often not ride with the guys and just be like, he wanted to change the name of the band to David Ruffin and the Temptations.
Yeah, and that was like,
and he was like, well, if you're going with Diana Ross and the Supremes, why can't we do David Ruffin and the Temptations? Yeah, but you're not Diana Ross, man.
Yeah, Diana Ross is Diana Ross.
Yeah, I mean, that's different. Okay, so
Diana Ross was also banging the.
Well, when you're banging Berry Gordy, I mean, you get to do whatever you want. It would happen. That happens with a lot of bands. Now, he was also, Ruffin was also annoying Berry Gordy like crazy because he was demanding outside accounting agencies to look at the books. He felt Gordy was ripping him off. They would bring in outside accountants, but they never actually had full, disclosure as to what was going on. They stonewalled him pretty much. And he also had a heavy cocaine problem, David Ruffin, which would eventually kill him later on in life.
Yep.
They fired David Ruffin June 27th, 1968. They had enough of his bullshit. And they brought in a guy named Dennis Edwards, who was the lead singer of the Contours. If you remember that song, Do You Love Me? That was the Contours. And I believe Do You Love Me was actually supposed to be done by the Temptations. And through some strange, thing, they ended up not recording it. It was given to the Contours to do.
But I think Dennis Edward fit very well.
Oh, he fit perfectly.
He
and he was friends with Ruffin.
Yeah.
Which was a kind of a weird thing. Like, he was buddies with him, and Ruffin knew he was going to get fired.
Yeah.
And the story supposedly goes like Ruffin and the band had a rehearsal. When it was over, he was hanging out with Edwards, and they were like talking, and he told Edwards, "Look, tomorrow morning you're going to get a call from the Temptations. They want you to be the lead."
Yeah. Oh, so he knew that.
Yeah, and he says, "Well, I can't do that. We're friends. I can't." And he's like, "No." And they talked all night, and Ruffin convinced him to do it, and he just fit right in, no problem. In fact, what would happen, strangely enough, over the next few months is when they would play live, Ruffin would show up sometimes. Okay, he would actually show up at gigs and come up and sing like "Ain't Too Proud to Beg" or something.
Oh my God.
Okay, and Edwards would just stand there because he's supposed to be singing it and just be like, "Okay, whatever,
Yeah,
and that went on for a few months, and then Ruffin kind of got his own career going for a little while. This was the period now we're going to get into called psychedelic soul. In the fall of '68, Norman Whitfield began producing and writing new material, and he was being strongly influenced by, James Brown, and also Funkadelic, okay, and Sly and the Family Stone. This was what he felt was like a modern sound for black music.
I also thought Jimi Hendrix was a little bit like that psychedelic soul kind of.
Well,
because he was
he was definitely psychedelic. He was definitely psychedelic,
especially with the guitar and shit. That was definitely psychedelic.
They never took the level of guitar playing in the Temptations to Hendrix levels, or even close. But it was like you would hear a lot of wah-wah pedal and stuff like that. But Hendrix didn't get into too much wah-wah pedal. He has albums with that.
Yeah.
Okay, but it wasn't like the early. I mean, he was making his own noise.
Yeah.
That was a totally different sound. But in October of '68, they came out with what would be really the first psychedelic soul single, and that would be the song "Cloud 9." All five Temptations. This was the difference with the way they recorded it. In the past, they would have one guy be the lead and other guys be the background. This was like a trade-off. You would hear all of them sing lines.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and if you listen to that style, that's exactly what it is. There's really no lead through the whole song. It would be like, Edwards would sing, even Melvin Franklin, he had the deep voice. Occasionally he would get something, a line in there. It was, the idea was to kind of blend the Motown sound with psychedelia. All right?
That's almost like what Boyz II Men did a lot. Everybody, there was like one guy that sang most of the lyrics, but then each guy had their own.
Yeah, well, that
lyrics.
they set the formula for that. And that was 20 odd years later.
You think they sent the formula that for rap? That's what a lot of rap groups, they're not really back up, but they got a bunch of different guys doing their own verses.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, okay, because the idea is everybody gets to say something.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, that kind of started with that. It's a good point. I didn't think of that. That also, Cloud 9 would be a top 10 hit for them, and Motown got its first Grammy that year in 1969 for Best R&B Group. Now, I read that when I was researching it, and I actually had to think about that for a second.
Yeah.
How come it took so long into '69 for Motown to get a Grammy?
That's the first Grammy?
No, Grammys were around longer.
No, I mean,
that.
but that was the first.
Motown Records' first Grammy.
Even with Smokey Robinson in there.
And Supremes.
The Supreme. Wow.
Yeah. So. That's definitely too little, too late. I don't understand.
It's a bunch of racists.
Racist. Yeah, I know. I think they didn't know what to do with black music in the beginning of the Grammys. They wanted to recognize it.
Remember when heavy metal first got a Grammy? They got a Grammy.
They gave it to Jethro Tull instead of Metallica.
What the fuck?
That was it was a similar thing where they didn't know what to do with it.
They didn't know what. Another example. They didn't know what to do with Motown, the Temptations.
They didn't know. I think there was probably some level of the Grammys that didn't want to take it seriously, but it really, I mean, people were buying these albums. They were huge sellers. The second single off of the Cloud 9 album would be Runaway Child Running Wild. And it had a long instrumental section in the beginning, a long jam session in the middle. And it would be kind of like a trademark sound for that psychedelic soul.
Yeah, that was.
And it talked about, social issues.
Yeah.
Okay, runaway kids, what they get into. They were becoming more socially conscious, the Temptations. And a lot of bands were. I mean, the Supremes had Love Child.
Yeah.
Okay, that whole album is... I mean, there's a song on there... I think it's called "Does Your Mother Know" on the Love Child album. Where I think it's called "Does Your Mother Know."
I think
and
it
it's Diana Ross is singing about. She's singing to her boyfriend, and it turns out he's a white guy. And she's saying, "Does your mother know about me?
Yeah.
Is she going to accept me?" And these were, the world was changing, so the music was changing.
Yeah.
Cloud9 got a little bit of a criticism because it supposedly was a drug reference. But the band felt it wasn't. Well, it is, but the band tried.
Cloud9. You guys would be in love and I'm in Cloud9.
They tried to play it down, I guess, to try to not make a controversy. But yeah, I mean, you listen to the words. He's saying, "I'm riding high on Cloud9" because everything around him sucks. So he's saying, "I'm going to go out and get high." He doesn't say high, but I'm going to be on Cloud9. Now they said, "Oh, it just meant like we're going to, ignore, but it, you know what it means. All you gotta do is listen to the song."
That's what he was like, "Which it will rain."
Now in the whole era of psychedelic soul, not too many albums, only really one or two would really delve completely into that sound, because the Temptations were always known for their ballads, and they always had to have a couple on there. Like even on the Cloud9 album, they were changing their style. They still brought a ballad on called "Why Did She Have to Leave Me? Why Did She Have to Go?" That was a popular song, even though it wasn't a single.
What do you think of Ball Confusion?
Ball of Confusion's about a year away. I'll go into that in a minute because that's one of my favorites.
That is one of the fucking best albums ever.
There's one album in between there called 1969's Puzzle People. Okay, Puzzle People. And I've been listening to this album a lot lately, getting into the research for this show. And I really think it's probably the best or one of two that that they ever did.
Yeah.
Okay, because it had it starts off with "I Can't Get Next to You." Okay, which is great. And when you listen to "I Can't Get Next to You," there's the single version and there's the album version.
Yeah.
And the album has like this intro where like there's all this commotion and everything, and then it just kicks in.
Oh,
and it's fucking great.
You think that's like the theme for the coronavirus? I can't get next to you now.
Gonna write a song called "Social Distancing."
Social distancing. That's pretty much what's happening right now.
I gotta tell you, I'm getting sick of that term, man.
That's social distance.
Yeah.
Let's keep on social distance because you can't have more than 10 people. You know what? They don't want you to have 10 more people because they know people lose their shit. Let's go riot.
They'll come up with something to do when there's nothing to do.
You see the Walking Dead. See how they live.
Yeah.
Or Zombieland. Start packing your Twinkies.
I can't. I mean, everything that's going on is totally nuts right now. That's why I'm glad we're doing this show.
Yeah.
All right, because I wanted it to continue. We could have said, we're not going to do any more shows for a while. I didn't want to do that. I'm not worried about this that much. I kind of like it that there's parking and nobody around and, all that. But getting back to Puzzle People, you had "I Can't Get Next to You." Running Away Ain't Gonna Help You. Don't Let the Joneses Get You Down. It's a great tune because he's talking about stop looking at the material shit that everybody's got. Worry about yourself. Then there was the song called "Message from a Black Man." That was a very socially conscious song that they would do. That they would.
Want to know the tequila?
No, I'm good.
You good?
I am good. The "Message from a Black Man" kind of became a Black Power song. And it's interesting, and actually the album went to top 5. It's interesting because, what do you got there?
The good stuff.
Ooh,
$80.
Instant sanitizer. Yep. That's gold right there.
Gold, baby.
The whole socially conscious thing that they were getting into, they weren't all on board with it.
No.
Okay, and they felt that it was stuff that they really didn't want to discuss in song, but Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong, who wrote a lot of the songs with Whitfield, it just kept giving them this type of music, and they kept going for it, and it was popular.
But it was
They were making money.
You know
off
what
it.
it is? Because they didn't really want to show any political. They didn't
No.
want to talk
Well,
about.
one thing, Gordy was against it to some degree
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And what he would do, a lot of times, is they would release other Temptations albums during that time.
Yeah.
Even on the same day, they would come up with there's one album that they did with the Supremes.
Yeah.
That's like a duets type thing,
Yeah.
and it came out the same time as this stuff.
Yeah.
So and both would do well.
Yeah.
So if you were a Temptations fan, you didn't. It was kind of smart, I guess.
Yeah.
If you didn't want to have that socially conscious stuff
Yeah.
over here, you could still hear the ballads and the songs that they were known for over here.
Yeah, with
You
the
know,
Supreme. Yeah.
with the Supremes or anybody else.
They even went to the point that they were releasing best of albums also.
Yes,
where they
best
would do
ofs
that.
were coming out at the
And
same
it was
time
like,
too.
oh shit, man,
Yeah.
what the hell's going on? Because he just didn't like the albums that they were doing at that time.
Well, I mean, they had enough hits at that
Yeah.
point. Now, in 1970, they came out with this amazing album called Psychedelic Shack.
Oof.
Okay. Again, a Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong writing team and production team. This album was probably the only one that really was totally psychedelic soul.
Yeah.
Paul Williams had actually become sick at that point. He had a terrible drinking problem, and he also had sickle cell anemia.
Yeah.
So it would be some of his last material. They brought in a guy named Richard Street on vocals to help out recording that album. He was with a lesser known Motown band called the Monitors.
Those who had like Don Harris, Rob Tyson.
Yeah, there were a few other people brought in to help make the record because Paul Williams was sick. There was a lot of infighting with this album. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
Eddie Kendricks and Otis Williams were not getting along at this point at all. But it seems like the more these guys fight, the better records they make.
Oh, yeah.
All right, because there's a track on here called "You Make Your Own Heaven and Hell Right Here on Earth." You got the title track, which is amazing. Psychedelic Shack is where it's at.
Yeah.
Psychedelic
It's
Shack,
fucking
right?
fantastic.
A song called "Take a Stroll Through Your Mind," kind of a psychedelic kind of sound. And then the original version of "War," which was done by Edwin Starr later on. But the Temptations actually recorded that song first.
Oh yeah, I know that. That's probably the best song of War.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is. You mentioned the greatest hits albums coming out. Now, in the same year as Psychedelic Shack, 1970, they came out with Ball of Confusion.
Yep.
It was a non-album single that they also tacked on to this Greatest Hits Volume 2, okay, to help push the sales of that along. It was written by Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong again. They brought in, they've been using the Funk Brothers. Now, the Funk Brothers, I think they need to be named here, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to name all 13 of these guys because they play on like Temptations, Supremes, other Motown albums and bands, and they don't really get any credit, and it was done that way on purpose to keep a kind of mystery about them.
Yeah.
They were almost like Motown's version of the Wrecking Crew, which was LA's session musicians.
Yeah.
Remember, like Dr. John was part of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Those guys. Okay, but this was the Detroit version. So you had 13 different guys.
Wow.
Richard Pistol Allen, Jackie Ashford, Bob Babbitt, Benny Benjamin, Eddie Bongo Brown, Johnny Griffith, Joe Hunter, James Jameson, Uriel Jones, Joe Messina, Earl Van Dyke, Robert White, Eddie Willis. Okay.
Wow.
Now,
That's a lot of motherfuckers.
yeah, and these guys played everything. Okay? Everything. All the background music that you hear on these Temptations records is these guys. In my opinion, I would say Ball of Confusion is their most perfect example of psychedelic soul.
That is a
and it's probably their. I mean, if you listen to it today, it could have been written now.
Oh yeah.
It could have been written
Yep.
now. Okay, it's 50 years old already. It was after Ball of Confusion's popularity, kind of the psychedelic soul thing was starting to wane a little bit, but not yet. Okay, because in '71 they came out with the album called "Sky's the Limit,"
Yeah.
and that had the #1 hit, "Just My Imagination."
Yep.
Now that's
song.
not really psychedelic soul because they were back to putting some regular soulful ballads on there, but it's a great tune. It would be covered a few years later by the Stones.
Yep.
In fact, the Stones were known for covering a few Temptation songs. They did "My Girl."
Oh yeah.
A few others. Also on that album,
They done a version of "I Ain't Too Proud to Beg." Also,
yes,
the
yes,
Stones.
Ain't Too Proud to Beg.
Yeah. Yeah, which
Is it on Some Girls? No, it's on. No, it's earlier. It's on. It's Only Rock and Roll, I believe.
Yeah, but
So
they did,
Ain't Too Proud to Beg.
They did
Yep.
that version, you know, and
Yeah.
it was damn good. I think
Oh, yeah.
with the Rolling Stone.
Yeah, I mean they always recognize the Temptations as an influence.
Oh, they definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear it in the music also.
Definitely.
They got that harmony and the way, you know, it's
Yep,
just the way
especially
they
the early
fucking-
stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
Yep.
Now this album, Sky's the Limit, had the original version of Smiling Faces sometimes.
Smiling
Faces. Right now, that was a top 5 hit for the Undisputed Truth around that same time, which was another black act. And the Smiling Faces version on the Temptations is like 11, 12 minutes long. It's a
Wow.
long jam. This was the last album with Eddie Kendricks. All right. You had another song on here called Ungena za Ulimwengu, which means Unite the World in Swahili.
Oh, Swahili.
Right
Yeah.
now, that was released as a single, and it bombed. It didn't even make the top 30, which for the Temptations it was a
Yeah.
bomb. You know, and it kind of marked the beginning of the end of psychedelic soul. Though they would continue with this. 1972, they came out with the Solid Rock album. Now, Paul Williams, it would be Paul Williams' last vocal track. He was officially out of the band at that point, but he was kept on the payroll as a choreographer.
Wow.
Okay, and unfortunately, he would, he was very sick with alcoholism and sickle cell anemia. He would commit suicide in 1973, sadly. Kendricks at that point was out of the band also. It was a troubled album, making Solid Rock. I wonder why they called it Solid Rock when the band was kind of falling apart. But there's a song on there called Superstar. Remember How You Got Where You Are. And it's a cool tune, and it's like blasts Ruffin and Kendricks calling them sellouts.
Yeah.
And it kind of like says, you got too big for your britches. It's an interesting track because it really kind of addressed that infighting.
Do you see when it went to the Rock and Hall of Fame, they actually gave it to 6 Temptations?
Yeah.
Why did they do that? Because the group changed so much?
Because the group changed so much.
So
yeah.
in 1989, they gave 6 guys.
They had to recognize guys that were only in the band briefly because they had hits.
Yeah.
Okay?
Big hits.
Yeah, big hits that you couldn't ignore. Richard Street and Damon Harris would now be in the band officially. They were brought in to replace Kendricks and Williams. They came out with a new single called Take a Look Around. Also a song called What It Is. Stop the War Now was another one. It was like an anti-Vietnam song. And a cover of Ain't No Sunshine, which was the Bill Withers hit. That album didn't have too much psychedelic soul on it. It was more ballads. They were kind of losing interest in that. But in 72, they would make one last ditch, real big effort at this, and it produced one of their biggest records ever. This was the All Directions album, and again produced by Norman Whitfield. And this is the album that had the #1 song, signature Temptation song, "Papa Was a Rolling Stone,"
Great fucking song.
which
Papa
is one of the, I would put it one of the
song.
top 10 greatest songs ever written. As a kid, Rob, I got to tell you a little background here. My dad was a giant Temptations fan.
Oh yeah.
And my dad kind of, molded some of my earliest influences in music, and one of them was the Temptations. Now, he used to have this album on 8-track.
Oh yeah.
And I used to sit back on a little piece of shit 8-track player, sit back and listen to this album all the time. And it just grew on me as a kid. And with Papa Was a Rolling Stone, it's like 12 minutes long.
Yeah, that's a great song.
And he's just talking about, this hard life growing up, and dad dies, and they're asking the mother, what's this we're hearing about our father? And it's like, it's sad in a way, and it just, you listen to it, if you really listen to the words, you could get emotional because it's like, holy shit, these guys are like just, all they want to know is the truth about their father.
He was a pimp.
He was all kinds of shit. He was all kinds of shit. He was stealing to pay his bills. Like the song goes.
So I'm going to tell what in the Rolling Stone magazine, 100 greatest artists of all time, where do you think their Temptation lies?
They got to be in the top 50.
Nah.
Not a little lower?
Yeah.
Maybe 70.
There are 68,
Okay, that's close.
which I think that's a good.
I guess,
place.
yeah,
100 greatest act of all time. Remember,
These things mean nothing, these
Oh, of
charts.
course.
But yeah, I mean, that's not a bad place.
That's not a bad place.
They're in the top 100. Think about how
Yeah.
many people
think about how
are
many
in that.
bands.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can't. They're too big to ignore.
Yeah.
Really, and their career was stretched a long period.
But think about that lineup. You had Smokey Robinson. You had the
Writing
Temptations.
songs. Writing songs.
But you had Smokey Robinson. You had the Temptation.
Yeah.
You had the Supreme.
Oh, you're talking Motown.
I mean Motown. And then you
Yeah.
had this guy, the guy that got killed by his dad. What's his name?
Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
Think about that lineup. Think about having a concert like where they had the Motown 20th anniversary.
All those people.
And
Like
you
if you
brought-
had Marvin Gaye, the Supremes, and the Temptations on the same bill,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that happened.
Was Gladys Knight and the Pimp down with Motown?
Last night the Pips was she? I believe so. I'm not sure. That I'm not sure.
The Pimps
The
against
Pips, not
the
Pips.
Pimps. The
The
Pimps.
Pips. Now,
Pips.
1972's All Directions with Papa Was a Rolling Stone. That
Great
was a
song.
number one hit. They didn't want to record that song. They fought tooth and nail not to record it. They fought Whitfield like crazy because they felt Otis Williams he felt like he didn't want to sing it. He's like, my father was a good guy. I don't want to like say this, But, it's,
But again, it was
he's
a
not-
song.
And
You're not saying about your
they
dad.
were trying to get away from that style.
Yeah.
And Whitfield was putting it on him, and they relented. They gave in, and it became a number one.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's also a track on here. I think I sent it to you. You know the song "Run Charlie Run"?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another song that they didn't want to
Yeah,
do.
that's
Okay, because the lyrics start out saying "Run Charlie Run." Ooh, the niggas are coming.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And they actually say it like several times in the
Oh,
song.
my God, that's-
Even the Temptations didn't want to
Yeah,
say
they're
that
like,
word.
but they did it.
They did it, but they didn't want to do it.
But think about it in today's hip hop. How many times they use it? It's like,
it doesn't mean
it's like say hello.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just like the coronavirus symptoms
Yeah.
is just Tuesday.
Oh my God! Yeah. It's Tuesday. This Tuesday didn't happen too bad. I got up pretty good.
I had what I had about 5 or 6 pints with you yesterday, something
Yeah.
like that. I was all right. I didn't have no shots, so that was good. This
It was
morning.
amazing how many people I had in the bar. I was like,
Yeah, International
holy
was
shit, all day.
was doing good yesterday. It was like a last call type
Yeah.
feel, Now there's some other tracks on All Directions I gotta mention. A track called "I Ain't Got Nothing," okay, which was the lead was by Otis Williams, which he didn't get too many leads. They also did a cover of the Roberta Flack song "First Time I Ever Saw Your Face," which is
great
probably just as good, if not almost as good, as the original.
Yeah.
A lot of people have done that song, and the only two versions I'll ever listen to is the original and
Did
this
they
one.
ever do a version of
You know who
heard
did
it
it?
through the grapevine?
Yes, not on that album. I think it's on
But
Cloud9.
they got a great
Yeah,
rendition.
they do
I
it.
heard
They do that
through the
good.
grapevine.
And they on Puzzle People, they do a version of "Hey Jude," which
oh yeah, that's very good too.
I hate that song, but I
They-
like the way they do it.
Yeah.
You know why? Because there's no na at the fucking end. They leave that 10-minute shit out at the end. Because usually by the end of "Hey Jude," you want to hang yourself.
Yeah,
Right? Sorry, Beatles fans. Not a strong song by them. I don't give a shit what you say. Okay.
Oh, I hate that shit.
I hate that song.
Pretty much, you know what? I got a hatred for the Beatles, especially.
No, I don't have a hatred for the Beatles, but there are some songs.
John Lennon.
There's some songs that I just don't like, and they're not above criticism. I'm sorry, they're not. Okay, people put them like up here, and they got some clunkers, man.
Oh, they got shit.
Please, "When I'm 64,"
Yeah.
that's a shit song. I'm sorry, Paul. I like you, but that song sucks. All right. In 1973, they one other song from All Directions is a great song called "Mother Nature." That was actually an R&B hit. Didn't really do well in the pop charts, but it was a big R&B hit in '72. Now in '73, they started working on an album called "Masterpiece." It would be released later that year. Whitfield was starting to get into these like really long jams. He had done that off and on with this whole type of genre here, but it was really kind of like out of control now. There was a song called "Hey Girl, I Like Your Style." Richard Street got the lead on that one. But the title track, Masterpiece, is a 14-minute song with only 3 minutes of vocals.
Yep.
Okay, and even the Temptations were like, this is excessive. And what was starting to happen was people were recognizing like a Norman Whitfield production more than it being a Temptations album. Okay, just by the sound. There was a track called Law of the Land, which would be done by the Undisputed Truth as well. A song called Ma. A song called Plastic Man, which was a hit. It was a top 40 hit. This album would also go to #1, and it was the last album recorded at Hitsville, USA in Detroit, because Motown in '73 were packing bags and moving west. The city had turned to shit. It wasn't safe anymore, and they moved to LA. All those acts would follow and then record out in Los Angeles after that.
But Berry Gordy had an office out there too in Los
Yeah,
Angeles.
of course, they all did.
I think he got to the point that he was working there more because Diana Ross was bitching to him come back home, and he's all right. I'm gonna get you to California. We're gonna make a movie.
If you remember in the '70s, wasn't everybody moving to California?
Yeah.
Happy Days.
Yep.
Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
We all went out to California. That was like a big thing to do. In '74, they came out with an album called 1990. Interesting title. The band did not want any kind of socially conscious music. They wanted to do ballads again. But the 1990 track is kind of in that style, and also Ain't No Justice is a track that was kind of in that style. Again, Whitfield's productions were becoming more well-known than the band. It was almost like it's just that sound. Like the people were getting away from that.
Yeah, but that song was such a, I don't know, it was such a very good song, don't you think?
Well, it was, and I have nothing against it. It's my favorite era from them. It's just that the band was never on board with it 100%. They kind of followed Whitfield's lead, and they didn't want, Whitfield was a bit of a slave driver with them, and kind of treated them bad, and like kind of treated them like, his band.
Yeah, but you know what the thing was? He, I think Berry Gordy also didn't like it because the lyrics they were writing. Again, they were writing very lyrics that nobody else was talking about.
Yeah.
They was singing stuff that...
You got to remember what was going on at that time. In the very late 60s, early 70s, there was a lot of riots.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, racial issues going on in this country. Marching. People were fighting over Vietnam. We were pretty divided, kind of like how we are today. But I think maybe on some level they didn't want to be involved with any of that because of the negativity. That album would actually get to number 19, but it would be considered kind of like a bomb. The critics killed it. They didn't like it. And actually 2 singles off it were banned by DJs in America. The tracks Heavenly and You're Gonna Set My Soul on Fire, they would not be played.
I didn't think those songs were that bad. Wow.
No, it's not that they're bad. It's that what happened was a record exec from Motown accepted an award for the Temptations at the American Music Awards, and he thanked all these people, but he didn't thank American DJs, and they got pissed. Okay, they got pissed, and they decided to not, play anything off this album, and it kind of tanked the album. So, now that would be the end of that era of the Temptations. They would never be big after this. They would continue on.
Yeah, when did Car Wash come out? Was a Car Wash a big hit also?
Car Wash wasn't the Temptations. That was Rolls Royce.
Oh yeah, Whitfield Records taking the 1960s. That's the one. Yeah. Because he actually started his own record label.
Yeah, and I think he worked with that band.
Yeah,
there was something with him involved with that, and he went on to work with other bands, and he had his own career too. I think his own career of music.
After the top 10, Let Your Head Down. Shortly after, Whitfield left Motown. And in 1960, established Whitfield Record, taking 1976 smash hit Car Wash.
Yeah, the Rolls Royce Band. Yeah. Okay, that's a great tune.
Yeah.
But the Temptations would continue on, eventually with pretty much just Otis Williams as the only original guy left. They haven't played in a while.
They did a reunion show with like 7 Temptation. Do you know that?
Yeah, but that was what, in the 80s?
Yeah. They were in a few movies. Save the Children.
Yep.
Happy New Year. Who Who's Harry Crumb? They were in the movie, the 2007 Walk Hard.
Yes, they were in Walk Hard. That's right. Walk Hard is a fucking funny movie, man. Oh man! And you mentioned Johnny Cash is spoofed in that. Johnny Cash actually did a cover of "The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face."
Oh yeah,
which is like with his voice.
Oh yeah,
such a gravelly.
That's great.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for the Temptations. I did want to talk about.
Look how good you did that, to the point that the TV shows and they also did a lot of special cover.
Yeah,
they were on the Love Boat, I think, a few times.
Everybody was on the Love Boat.
That's a great show.
Yeah, I did want to talk about quickly the Wire show that I saw last week. A band called Wire.
Oh, the band! I thought the show The Wire was so good.
No. I'm talking about the band called Wire. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
it's great show.
Wire is a punk band, a UK punk band. They started around '77 or so, and they had a classic punk album called Pink Flag. Great album, but what I saw last week was the band, but they were doing all their later stuff. Which at first I was kind of disappointed because I didn't know until after I had obligated myself to the show. I was like, oh, that's what they're doing. But I was hoping to hear Pink Flag stuff. But seeing it, I was really pleasantly surprised. There were some tracks that I wasn't that familiar with. Most of the songs I knew, maybe about 25% I didn't know. But that era of Wire kind of gets shit on. And I think I want to start listening to them again and get into that kind of later period. Because there was some great tracks on there.
Can we do a show on them?
They're a weird band. Yeah, we could. We could do a show on Wire. Why not?
I think, are we going to do a show on the Supremes?
We could.
All this Temptation, we definitely got to talk about. We got to do a whole show on Berry Gordy and the Supreme.
We could do a show on the making of Motown.
Yeah.
Like the whole Motown label, how they did that, I was going to talk about some upcoming shows that are out there, but already I think one of them's been canceled. I'll mention this, people, if you're interested. April 3rd, the Subhumans at Market Hotel.
I think that's canceled.
It probably is. April 11th and 12th, the Lunatics are playing Webster Hall. Now that's sold out, but I imagine it might be canceled.
I think it's canceled.
April 17th, the Undertones show at Gramercy. That's been canceled. And May 1st, GBH. And we did a show on GBH.
Yep.
They're playing the Gramercy. I don't think that's been canceled yet. I get a lot of notifications from Gramercy, and all I saw was the Undertones. So let's hope by May 1st, this fucking shit is over with.
Man. I think baseball already made the decision. June 1st.
They said with that, the World Series is going to be in November. If they go any further than that, they'll be playing at Christmas time. It's ridiculous.
Another thing, I think if you're watching the show, it's St. Patty's Day, and it's a very quiet St. Patty.
Very quiet.
But I think if you look it up, I think the Dropkick Murphy might be doing a show.
They're doing a show online. Yeah, I saw that at 7. If you're watching live right now, it's March 17th. Go on the Dropkick Murphy's Facebook page if you like them. They're doing a live streaming show, I think from Boston. Usually that's where they are in St. Patty's. At 7 o'clock tonight.
Yep.
So I will be in front of my computer watching that tonight.
I'll be doing the same thing.
With a Guinness.
I won't have a Guinness, but I have enough to kill a small child.
There you go.
And that's, I guess, the way it's going to be for a few days now. We'll probably do a few shows from the bunker until everything gets straightened out.
Nothing wrong with the bunker.
Another thing, people, be safe and remember, don't get drunk, get lumped up. See you later.